Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Templar, and today for this first episode of the month of February for Civil War Month, I am going to be talking to y'all of Colonel Alexander Dunay, or Dunay, whichever way you pronounce it as, and of which this soldier was actually born in 1810 of August 3rd, while being born in the region of Tennessee. Many say that he was born near the area of modern-day Nashville. However, some others also state that he was actually born somewhere else. While being born in Tennessee, Alexander Dunay was actually born into a family of Hebrew Americans, of which he was actually Jewish. And yes, this actually is extremely impressive to actually talk about in the American Civil War. In fact, Dunay was actually stated to have actually been a very hardcore, Jewish soldier. And in fact, he decided to actually join the United States military and even went and headed over to West Point when it came to his time. While being at West Point, he actually managed to taking the ranking of 12 out of the 100 people in West Point during his class. While being inside the entire area, it was stated that Dunay actually managed to be given a type of role in history as a cavalier. In fact, he was even stated to have actually served in the United States Cavalry during the time of the Mexican-American War. While fighting against the Mexican forces, Dunay actually managed to use a type of hit-and-run strategy that we can actually view as a type of form of guerrilla warfare. However, this type of idealism that he had used was extremely different compared to that. Using this tactic, he had actually copied from many Native American tribes, and as well mixed it in with American tactics. While using these tactics, he actually managed to trick many forms of Mexican forces, and as well destroy Mexican supply lines, which would later on help out in the war effort. After the war, it was stated that Dunay was stated to have been stationed in Texas, and as well actually fought alongside none other than Jeb Stuart. While being here in Texas, he was even stated to have actually earned the ranking from captain to colonel, and in doing so, he later on been rewarded for many medals of honor, and as well even a peacekeeping medal from both Native American tribes and as well the United States of America. But finally, when the American Civil War had emerged, it was stated that Dunay had actually wanted to join the United States Army rather than fight for the Confederacy. However, seeing his hometown actually start fighting for the Confederacy in the region of Tennessee, he decided to join the Confederate Army as a cavalier. While being the colonel of a Tennessee cavalry, it was stated that Dunay actually fought in the Battle of First Manassas, or in this case, Bull Run. And during this time, he actually used extreme aggressive tactics that actually surrounded Union forces from the rear, cutting off supply lines, and as well later on bursting through the rear end of the Union forces. In other words, attacking the artillery. However, he was later on dismissed from the field after taking several wounded. Soon after this, he was even stated to have actually gone to the region of Shiloh in 1862. While at Shiloh, it was even stated that he and his men actually destroyed and sabotaged many Union supply lines, and as well even managed to actually disrupt Union support. In fact, during this timeline, it was even stated that they had sabotaged many cannons and weather balloons, and including even some other types of, forms of military use, and as well even stole documents from Union forces. Soon after this conflict, though, it was stated that Dunay actually was stated to have withdrawn from Tennessee, and later on had gone to the Battle of Second Bull Run, or Second Manassas, and then later on to the Battle of Antietam and Fredericksburg, where he had used his cavalry tactics yet again, even then finally to the Battle of Chancellorsville in 1863. However, his most famous type of combat was never actually truly seen on the battlefield, but was actually seen before the battlefields. In fact, before the Battle of Antietam, it was actually stated that Dunay and his men had actually managed to trap many Union forces and as well encircle them in a form of ambush strategy. And as well, even during the time of the Battle of First Bull Run, it was even stated that Dunay had advised many Confederate soldiers to actually charge with him and his forces into the Union lines. In fact, he was even stated to have actually taken a type of strategy from Alexander the Great. He even stated that he will have the infantry charge in with them with their cavalry. This was probably one of the most devastating idea in history books, and as well, the Union troops were so terrified they were stated to have fled before they were even able to be shot by a Confederate firearm. While fighting against the Union forces, it was stated that Dunay and his men had actually managed to surround and attack many of the Union forces, using this strategy, encircling, and later on even using a Union cannon against them. Dunay was stated to have been a famous soldier from that time and time. However, his final battle actually occurred somewhere in modern-day West Virginia. While being in West Virginia, it was stated that he was disrupting Union supply lines. While being here in the area of West Virginia, it was that a Union captain known as Kahan, which was another Hebrew nationalist, that actually came from the same region of Tennessee and fought for the Union Army. While here, Captain Kahan had actually ordered a cavalry force to actually trap and in the process, hopefully, capture Colonel Dunay. However, this did not end up well. In fact, it was stated that Dunay had actually taken at least 3 wounds, and as well even a saber wound to his arm. One of the shots, though, had actually ruptured his lower leg, while another one had actually managed to even struck him through the entire lungs and some. After being shot so many times, it was stated that Dunay and his men had actually withdrawn to a type of hillside ridge. This would later be known as Dunay's Mound, or also known as Kahan's Ledge, of which was mostly made of stone and of which had a small valley region. This actually created a bottleneck of Union troops later on charging down into a Confederate position. However, the Confederates held strong and opened fire upon the Union troops. They later on stated that they had to charge down due to the lack of firearms, and even had to use the pole arms of a spear-type lance as spears in order to actually thrust them deep into the Union line. However, it was even stated that while doing this, the Union Army managed to surround and then shoot Dunay and his men. Dunay was said to have held his position, holding nothing more than his Lamet revolver, a Colt revolver, and then later on went for his 2 pepperbox revolvers. He was also stated to have actually also used a type of carbine, which was an 1855 Colt. While opening fire upon the Union troops, it was stated that Dunay was actually badly shot over and over again until he was finally hit by Union cannon. After being hit with grape shot, it was stated that Dunay had actually fell to the ground alongside his horse, in which it was even stated that he actually held his position next to his horse after his horse fell, stating that he will not give up one of his oldest companions. Soon after seeing their comrade fall, it was stated that Dunay's men had actually charged out with a ferocious rage and yelled a battle cry that was actually with a mixture of the rebel yell and the Hebrew word of Yahweh, of which Dunay had actually taught his men to use. This was actually used throughout time in history. However, after this incident, it was stated to have never been used again. Dunay and his men kept fighting for the body over and over again, and as well, one Union soldier even stated the following, that it was almost as though we were pulling his body apart like rabid wolves among the sheep, and as well, it's almost as though that his body was never even torn, but yet never kept as well. After ferocious fighting, it was stated that the Confederates had managed to hold off the Union troops. However, with the lack of firepower and as well manpower, it was stated the Confederates only had 5 men compared to the Union 30 men. As well, Captain Kahan even stated that it was almost as though that it was even taken apart from the Battle of Thermopylae when Leonidas fell upon his 300. While seeing his old friend actually lie down upon the field, Kahan was actually stated to have actually walked forward, and even stated the following, that these men will not become prisoners, nor shall they actually become set free, but they will be allowed to return to their home of Tennessee, not taking part of the war, but yet also being surviving it. Kahan even stated that he would actually even have his old friend, Dunay, return to Tennessee. After hearing this, many of the Confederate cavalrymen that fought with Dunay laid down their arms and returned home. It was stated that on 1863 of June 12th, Dunay breathed his last while he died in a hospital bed. But while being returned to the city of Nashville, it was stated that Dunay's body was buried in a Confederate cemetery, along with a type of flag that was used by the Confederate forces of the Hebrew military. Dunay actually was favored for actually using the Star of David upon his flag. It was stated that he had a Confederate battle flag with the 13 stars of David, of which was impressive by far. Dunay was actually later on remembered as an American hero, but as well a Hebrew hero as well. And as well, later on in 2009, his tomb was actually destroyed by a bunch of groups of the Black Lives Matter, believing that it was just and cause to destroy history. In fact, most of these men that were inside this type of graveyard were actually mostly of Jews and Hebrew origin, not just a Confederate, but also Union troops, and many of their bodies badly destroyed, and as well their caskets and graves nevermore. Colonel Alexander Dunay was one of my favorite types of Hebrew soldiers that fought in the Confederate Army, and yet his memory is not that much remembered. He is both remembered in stories and songs of his courageous battle strategy and as well his ferocity on the battlefield. However, he is badly remembered by many people, and unfortunately, with the destruction of his grave, it is still not known how great a soldier he really was. And in truth, in 2009, it was actually stated that his statue was actually torn down by a group of radicalistic people that actually wanted the statue torn down just because it was a Confederate statue. This was actually torn down in none other than Memphis, Tennessee. To all those that don't remember him, I advise you to look more into history before you tear down it. Otherwise, you will never know anything about this great hero or anyone else like them. If you all like this video, let me know down in the comments below. I'll be happy to actually view them, and as well also to actually create a video for the said part in history that you want me to cover for this type of month. And as well, I'd be happy to actually talk about anything else about Colonel Dunay if you need me to actually inform you about it. Also guys, click that bell button for more notifications, and as well also click that like button, and as well also subscribe for more videos, and as well it can help the channel grow, and as well so that way y'all can actually learn more history. Anyways guys, this has been Templar. Have a great day.